He's going to try and zip this one right on the ground into Maddison's feet, but he gets the technique all wrong. This is the big moment. Watch as he hits this ball right up in the air. Maddison does the best he can to try and settle it, pops it up, but then tries to volley the ball down. It's a 50-50 between Romero and Foden. Foden would win this little battle, get the ball, and he's off to the races. Tottenham Hotspur versus Manchester City in the Premier League this week was a whole lot of fun because the two teams playing each other were just exciting. There was also a lot on the line specifically for Man City. So what we're going to do is go over the key moments of the game and how the match went the way it did. Welcome to Campfire Football. I'm Sebastian North. So this was a great match to watch for any neutral, and largely because of Ange Ball. I love watching the way this guy sets his team up. Spurs are really risky. They are ballsy, but they're really fun for the neutral. So let's take a look here at the first chance that Spurs created. They would get a shot off here, and it was probably the only shot they actually took in the whole first half. Here is their setup. You've got Romero, who is the right center back on this side, Dragusin, the left center back here. The left back is Mickey van de Ven out on the touchline, and then Pedro Porro is the right back who is sort of stepping into midfield. The holding midfielders, that would be Rodrigo Bentancur and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, they would sort of drop into this central space to receive the ball. So Vicario goes wide out to Dragusin, it goes to Mickey van de Ven, and he looks forward immediately. How can I find James Maddison, my creative player? Does well, but Maddison is forced backwards by Rodri, and this is just good stuff for Maddison to wriggle away from pressure. He needs enough time to get his head up, and he does a very nice job there of shaking Rodri. You can see Rodri kind of like gives up like, oh my God, I'm getting dizzy here. What it does is it creates just enough room for Maddison to get his head up, and he sees Bentancur. Here's another clever piece of play from Bentancur right here. Ball comes into him, one-touch ball into Højbjerg, and instead of just standing there, he runs, which means that Kovacic has to follow him, and that creates a little extra space for Højbjerg, who is going to launch the ball out to the far side, looking for Brennan Johnson. It's a terrific cross, and the way Spurs were playing, they had a back four, two holding midfielders, which were Bentancur and Højbjerg, two attacking midfielders, or eights, which were Maddison and Papsar, and then two forwards, Brennan Johnson and Heung-Min Son. But Brennan Johnson and Heung-Min Son were not central. They were super high and wide, and this is the reason why. Can you find them on the big switch? And then the other one joins in and essentially becomes the center forward so you can cross into each other. Also, you have your midfield joining in the attack here, Rodrigo Bentancur. He gets a chance top of the box. This is a great opportunity 5 minutes into the game, but his shot is saved by Ederson. As for Man City, when they attack, Kyle Walker was the obvious option. Why? Because look at Spurs' setup. I mean, it's a 30 by 30 box. All 10 outfield players are in it, yet Man City still love the idea of trying to play through it. But if you take a look, Gvardiol is up here on the far side, Walker is here, and there are just acres of space in front of them because Spurs are not just really compact, but they're also super high line. So what does this mean? Well, City may do this for a couple passes, little quick ones right inside, but the obvious ball is out to Walker. He makes the run, gets played by Rodri, but it's a little too straight of a ball. It's a little too straight of a run in the end, and it goes out of play. Here's another example of City breaking that press, finding Walker on the far side, but also taking a look at the way Spurs would press in this situation. Ball goes back to Ederson. 5 Spurs players up. There's also a gap, though, between these 5 and the next 5, and that's what City are looking for. Can we break this first line of pressure? Ball goes out to Gvardiol. He's able to keep it in with a header. Kovacic slips, manages to get back up and control it. That's nice. And can they find one of their central midfielders to be able to switch the ball out to the on-running Walker? Kovacic checks back. Now the ball into Foden is on. Foden turns. Up comes Walker. The ball is through. Walker's first touch is straight. If it is towards the goal, he might actually be able to get a chance on target himself. Instead, he does the typical right back thing, which is just drive straight towards the end line and look back. Spurs do well to recover and transition, and they're able to clear the ball. All right, Phil Foden is absolutely fantastic. He is the player of the season, and here he is just completely controlling the midfield in this game. Ball comes into him from Akanji. He probably could have spun out and turned here, but instead he goes with a little layoff to Kovacic, who plays the ball out to Gvardiol, and in seconds, City have just completely broken through the Spurs press. Gvardiol doesn't really have any options ahead of him unless he wants to just run himself, but Spurs do a good job to slow him down, and he's going to play the ball back. Now, if you look at Spurs, though, their shape, they are not as tight as they were earlier, and they're not pressing, which means they're doing neither. And so that in-between thing is exactly what a player like Phil Foden feasts off of, because there's a lot of space between players, and so therefore there are little gaps all over the place for him to receive the ball. Kovacic plays it in, he checks. Look at this little one-touch ball out to Gvardiol. Phil Foden continues with the play. Nice little split in here to De Bruyne. He keeps running. De Bruyne does the logical thing by just giving it back to him. Well, now he's going to look up, and he has Haaland. Unfortunately for Foden, this ball is just a little bit weak. It needs to be out ahead of Haaland about here so you can just run onto it. Instead, it's like right into his feet, and he has to slow down. But also, look at the space here. If Walker is able to be bursting forward here, he for sure gets in. Haaland would turn and be able to lay him off. Walker's not to be seen in this scenario, and in the end, Haaland gets bundled off the ball. But that was just a great example of Foden doing Foden things. Once again, you see the Spurs defense is really, really tight, compact, and high. Kovacic goes in to Diaz. Diaz plays the ball to Rodri. It's back to Kovacic. Then they find De Bruyne. He does a nice little move here to create the space. It's into Foden. I mean, all of this is really intricate passing within 6 Spurs players. They still manage to break through, and they still manage to find that outside play. I mean, this is just fantastic football all around. Kyle Walker gets the ball again. Spurs do a good job of transitioning back and getting enough players in the penalty area where they can just cut the cross out. So that was fantastic play from Man City, and they did control that opening 20 minutes. But then Spurs would start to get their way into the match. They would create a couple chances and really unsettle City in the process. And crucial to Spurs' attacks was Rodrigo Bentancur. We're going to see just how dynamic of a player he was and how much of a difference he made. So here's Spurs are. You see this same shape we saw earlier. Højbjerg splitting the 2 center backs. Mickey van de Ven high and wide. Porro in the midfield. So Dragusin goes to Van de Ven. He doesn't have an option forward, so he goes back. Dragusin looks up. Again, there's not really a whole lot available, and Man City are pressing well. You see here, De Bruyne is the one initiating it. He wants them to go backwards. They do. Once again, Højbjerg has the ball, and so he has to go back to Vicario. Now, Vicario is going to take a touch out of his feet here. What it does is it signals to Haaland he's probably going out to Romero. So I'm going to run out there. Porro sees this and jumps into this space. And so there is a split here that has been created. And Vicario is going to go ahead and take that ballsy pass. Porro knows that he's got Foden running in behind him, so he lays it off to the forward-facing Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. And now they can go out the other side. Now you may say, well, they were just here a few seconds ago. Now they're back. Well, yeah, but they've also drawn in a few more City players here. And here is the key. Because they've drawn them in, there's now space to run behind. And Bentancur has noticed that. He runs off the back of Kovacic, and Heung-Min Son is about to create an enormous amount of space. There he is. He popped into the picture. Walker is going to follow him. And the ball from Van de Ven down the line to Bentancur is on. It's really brilliant play from Spurs here. Bentancur goes ahead, tries to send it across, but you could see what they were doing and how big of a deal Bentancur's runs from midfield and behind were. Here's another example of that. Once again, Spurs building from the back with Vicario. He goes into Van de Ven. Van de Ven goes back to Pape Sarr, who's looking to get out. This is funny. I mean, Maddison is a really interesting player. Look at this. He puts the ball out, and he looks like he's about to crank this ball out to Brennan Johnson. But instead, he cuts it back, and he's like in worse trouble, essentially, than he just was before. It's very strange. He tries to wriggle out of pressure. He looks up. He sees Bentancur. We kind of saw that earlier, that same type of pass. But Bentancur is not really in a better situation. He's probably under even more pressure. But he's brave, and this is what Danch Postecoglou likes his players to do. Take charge, take control, pass forward, and then run forward. Watch Bentancur here as he continues to burst forward. Guess what? Son has dropped in, which means Walker has followed him. Van de Ven finds Son, who's running through. Bentancur. Play the ball into that space that Walker has left open. And once again, Spurs have broken the press. And this is a very dangerous situation. I mean, this is a 4-on-3. But the split here out to Brennan Johnson is on. And if this ball gets played, you could see Spurs creating an attack here, maybe scoring. But no, Bentancur just lazily, I don't know which one he wanted to do. I don't know what his exact idea there was, but it gets cut out. So these were major warning shots from Spurs. They were creating great chances getting through City, and then City started to have problems of their own, and they would start to get pretty sloppy. So Pep Guardiola's teams are all about control, keeping possession of the ball, keeping control of the game. Rodri here with the ball, plenty of time. I don't know why, but Guardiola has his back to him. That's a very strange thing right there. Rodri's not trying to play the ball to him. He's trying to actually get it out to Foden. But everything about this is so slow, and Pape Sarr just reads it and wins the header. I mean, this is a strange thing. Now Guardiola's got to wake up and be like, wait, what's happening? So that's a weird moment to see. And yes, when it's isolated, it's nothing. But when these things start to pile up, becomes an issue. Look, they have the ball here in an advanced position. Spurs are bunkered in. There's not really anywhere for Man City to go. So whatever, just take your time. As they continue to move the ball around, it comes into Rodri and he plays it to Walker. Now Walker looks up. This is the pass, Kyle Walker, right down the line into the channel. Phil Foden's making the run. This is where the ball should go. But Walker instead decides to turn back, which is exactly what Spurs want. Heung-Min Son is like, all right, chases Bernardo Silva, chases out to Ruben Diaz. Pape Sarr is going to close down Mateo Kovacic when he gets the ball. Son's going to help him. Kovacic under pressure has to dig the ball out of his feet and plays the ball to Akanji that he has to reach for. One bad pass leads to another. Bad passes and bad touches are contagious. And just look at what happens next. Now Guardiola is really losing it. And there would be another example of that right here. Ball comes into Ederson. He goes to Bernardo Silva. Bernardo Silva does a simple pass, goes to Ruben Diaz. But watch Kyle Walker here. This is a miscommunication of the highest order. Walker decides, I'm running, turns his back, but Ruben Diaz does not see him, and he just passes the ball out of play. So 0-0 at the half, and Spurs had made a great account of themselves. They started the game well, then Man City took over, were finding space through Walker, but Spurs found a way to get themselves back into the game, create some chances of their own, and really unsettle Man City as it went into halftime. But just 5 minutes in, they concede the first goal of the game. So we're going to pick up where this all started out. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg has the ball, goes back to Romero, and Romero, nice little no-look pass on the floor right into Bentancur's feet, and then Bentancur takes settling touch, nice dip of the shoulder to get away from Rodri so that he can find James Maddison, who also has a couple nice touches, plays the ball out wide to Son, and they're attacking. Son cuts in. We all know what he's going to try and do from here. Shoot. It's not a very good shot. Diaz blocks it, but Spurs, they're able to keep possession and reset. This is all good. Now, how can they keep the pressure on? They just have to do the same kind of thing. Find little gaps. Here's Bentancur. He looks up and he sees James Maddison, who's asking for the ball. He's going to try and zip this one right on the ground into Maddison's feet, but he gets the technique all wrong. This is the big moment. Watch as he hits this ball right up in the air. Maddison does the best he can to try and settle it, pops it up, but then tries to volley the ball down. It's a 50-50 between Romero and Foden. Foden would win this little battle, get the ball, it breaks in his direction, and he's off to the races. Unfortunate for Spurs because they were in a great position. Now Foden's in, he crosses the ball to the back post, but it's not over yet. Spurs have plenty of players back. They can see all the Man City players. Bernardo Silva cuts in. What is the most obvious ball that we've seen a zillion times? It's this little reverse pass for Kevin De Bruyne to go in the channel here, and Højbjerg sees him. He should absolutely run with him, but he doesn't. And De Bruyne now is free to play the ball that he has become so well known for, especially with Haaland in the team. And it's 1-0. And that really is unfortunate for Spurs. I feel for Bentancur because he was brilliant in the game. Here he is actually coming off the field. He was subbed out about a minute and a half later for Dejan Kulusevski. So here's a big moment in the game. Ederson would get injured. It's a ball in from Kulusevski. Romero goes in at the back post. He had every right to go over the ball, but he clatters into Ederson, and so Stefan Ortega is brought on. Ederson was not happy to come off, but he has a broken eye socket, so he will miss the FA Cup final as well as the final day of the league season, and they're going to have to rely on Ortega. Not the worst thing when he makes saves like the ones I'm about to show you. But here's Spurs going from back to front very well. Sarr, edge of his box, plays the ball into Pedro Porro, and watch this from Porro. Instead of just taking a touch and slowing down, he allows the ball to run across his body so that he can play it one time up the line. And now Brennan Johnson can run. And in just a few seconds, Spurs have gone from the top of their penalty area to the top of City's. So Kulusevski gets the ball here. He bodies Rodri off it, goes past Akanji, and look at this. Johnson is certain that Kulusevski's about to score. I mean, he's got his hands up. He's like, let's go. But it's a very good save by Ortega, and the first of 3 major ones. Here's the second one. Big ball over the top. Kulusevski makes the run in behind, and it's a huge mistake by Diaz right here. He just overruns the ball. Kulusevski tries to go himself. Another save by Stefan Ortega. But it wasn't as good as this one. The massive moment of the game, and we're going to pick it up where it all started. So Josko Gvardiol has a throw-in, and this would be the first pass of a 20-pass sequence that would go on for 50 seconds for Man City. The final pass and the final touch were what led Tottenham to almost get the equalizer. And it all starts right here. So they move the ball around very, very well. Here you see Bernardo Silva. He looks up and he sees Gvardiol in the middle. But the technique is crucial. If he curls it and it goes right into Gvardiol's path, it's fantastic. Instead, he slices it. He just gets it wrong in terms of technique. And now they're kind of just trying to recover possession. Kovacic there was watching the ball. He couldn't check to see what he's got behind him, so he doesn't quite know how much pressure he has. He settles it, plays the way he faces, go to Rodri, but Rodri as well is under pressure and doesn't know the picture around him. So falling over, he just decides, I'm going back to Akanji. Not a bad ball. Akanji does a very good job to settle it, and actually, his first touch is so good, it's just like, just play it back to Ortega and the whole situation's settled. But for some reason, Akanji takes another touch, and Brennan Johnson takes advantage. Panic stations. And Son is one of the best players in the league in this situation. Ortega seemed to leave a good amount of space on his left, on Son's right, and this side of the goal, but he reads Son very well and does a hockey goalkeeper style skate save. And you'll get this again. I mean, this reminds you of the World Cup final when Emi Martinez saved from Randall Colomwani. Now he's on a breakaway. Now he's going through. He's about to shoot. Uh-oh, we've lost the title. Oh my God. Oh wait, my goalkeeper has saved it. It's absolutely hilarious to see Pep in this state. And I mean, you can just tell the nerves, the tension. And then they would go on to get the clinching goal. We'll pick this up. Kyle Walker has a throw in. He bombs it down the sideline. Erling Haaland gets the flick inside to Foden, who volleys it out to Jeremy Doku. This is kind of funny actually as this develops, because to see a 1v1 with nobody else in the picture is just kind of strange. Anyway, Doku just takes Porro to school, gets fouled. Haaland steps up, takes the penalty, scores, and Manchester City are one win away from history of getting the 4th consecutive Premier League title, something no one has ever done. But Spurs, I want to mention them. I know I'm a Chelsea fan, but I have to say this, Spurs were really fun to watch. Ange Ball is really exciting. I would love it if I was a Spurs fan. It is a little crazy, it's risky, but it's fun. Basically, until Guardiola leaves, the rest of the league can just kind of phone it in. Either way, thanks for stopping by. I'm Sebastian North. This is Campfire Football. Hope you enjoyed the breakdown.